Hello, gentlemen and germs, ghouls and gals. I've got Stanislaw joining me today on Blast Greats. And I hear the stream because I have it open. Okay, that's closed and a lot better for me here, Stanislaw. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about a game from the Blast Spring series, a Nuke match versus 100 Thieves. It was super close. There was some interesting stuff in that interview, actually, I want to bring up about this match as well that you mentioned. But before all that, Stanislaw, where the hell are you? Seems like you've got a nice quarantine zone going on.
Yeah, I'm in my office, which is in my home, which is in close to Toronto, Canada.
Mhm.
Obviously, I hope everyone's staying safe and healthy out there right now. We've never seen anything like this in our lifetime, and I'm sure we won't see anything like this again. But hopefully, we
Yeah.
can just get through it quickly. And we should just be very fortunate that we have Counter Strike to play right now and
Mhm.
watch.
Yeah, and a little Valorant too, maybe?
I have not touched that game, and I don't plan on
I had a
it.
feeling that was gonna be your answer. You can always count on you to be a Counter-Strike purist, which is great.
Mhm.
You've stayed at home for the majority of your career, right? Like, you haven't, like, enjoyed living in team houses. There's not a lot of evidence that team houses really do much, so it's not even that bad for you, right? Like, you've already played a lot of your EG matches and practices from home, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm for sure I enjoy being at home, but at the same time, my opinion about team houses has changed drastically, like from year to year. At first, I was completely against it, and then during my time at Complexity, I actually moved out to Texas for a year, and I saw a lot of benefits from being close to your teammates and always working with them in person each day because you can kind of iron out a lot of issues that you can online, like in-person interactions, and you kind of get a better feeling of how things work together,
Mhm.
and just it brings you closer together in a sense. But I still feel like just living at home and being comfortable, just with the amount of traveling that we do, especially for like a top 10 team, they go to so many tournaments and you're not even at home anyway. So it's like there's no real point of I feel like living in a team house if you're just traveling every other week anyway.
Mhm. You have any animals?
My mom has a dog which I look after quite often, but no, I
Mm.
don't have any right now.
No, not right now. Yeah, it's tough, especially when you travel, even if you're living at home, having to leave all the time. So recently, like, a lot of stuff has changed for you. Obviously, you've got Zeus coming in as coach. Um, ImAPet leaving kind of a scathing twit longer about the situation, leaving the team. With you in the history of playing with EG and teams in general, I think I heard a comment that was, I'm not sure if you said this or if a teammate said this on your behalf, but it was that in general you weren't super keen on the idea of having coaches in the first place. I mean, obviously now you have Zeus, so things change, but was there ever a point where you were not so fond of the idea of having a coach at all?
I think having a coach is always really beneficial. You have somebody behind you, A, to hold people accountable, and B, just to have an extra set of eyes. I think you kind of need a coach in today's Counter Strike. But in terms of getting Zeus for us, I think it's huge. I think he's one of the best coaches out there in the world. He's already worked with us quite a bit, and we're just changing a lot of things and trying to get on the same page as quick as we can. Because obviously we've bombed out of VSL, we came second to Liquid, but I still feel like we played pretty well, and he actually contributed quite a lot to that. So we're just excited to, buckle down, practice, and there's nothing else to do during this quarantine, right? So we're just really motivated to play and practice and get behind Zeus.
Yeah, that's really good. I know, I mean, I was wondering for people, like, even for me, I feel like I talk to players like a fair bit. I like do a lot of research, I ask questions, but I have a hard time understanding what one coach does versus what another coach does. Like, how do you scout out a coach and know if they're going to be good for your team or not?
Well, luckily enough for me, I worked with Zeus before, and
Yeah.
obviously, back in Liquid when I did work with him, we had some issues which were obviously made public by me, and I've already fully taken responsibility for those things. But back then, I was a completely different person, and even nowadays, I can kind of appreciate more and look back and see the things that he was doing. Just like making sure that we're all always on the same page in terms of communication, ironing out issues, and not being too closed-minded because back then in Liquid, like we had a lot of we just weren't good at communicating. If somebody had a problem with somebody, they wouldn't, bring that up and bring it up in the right way. And Zeus
Mhm.
was like just huge on conflict resolution and that kind of stuff. And back then I was a lot more introverted and shy, but now obviously I'm trying to my best to break out of that shell.
Mhm.
And I just feel like I see a lot more benefits now in what his style was. So I feel like the place that I am in now, and especially the place that my team is now, I feel like we're going to benefit a lot from the type of person and coach that Zeus is.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think I talked to you a lot, especially around that time around Liquid, and you were teamless for a bit and still like a tier 1 IGL, but between teams and gaining this kind of bad reputation from the community for things that people didn't really understand, like professional decisions get made. And this is not something that's my opinion. I mean, this is just the way of the world. Like somebody has a fan and then those fans are going to take one side or the other, but nobody has complete information except for the people involved. So you expressed your side of that story with Liquid at the time in your twit longer, and then you're now coming to I'm a Pet. It's another situation where simply I think you were called out, and Tarek was called out specifically for not working with Chet that well. Ultimately, the decision to remove a coach, I think people are pretending to be the most upset about, as if like that's a snake decision in itself. Obviously, coaches can get removed without it being a snake decision. But what would you say about the kind of the response from I'm a Pet in his twit longer? Anything that you can talk about with how it was worded, or what your side of the story was, or what it means to talk about his works directly, what it means to deal with the conflicts that you had with him on a game level, not a personal level.
I mean, I feel like we always got along in a friendly sense. But just like looking back, obviously the public's perception of it was that it was because they've only heard his side of the story, right? So the public's perception of it is that it's mine and Tarek's fault, which is completely not true. And I feel like every decision that we make on this team, and I've made clear that I want everyone's opinion on everything that we do as a team, whether it's strats or how we play or how we interact, what lens, like every single decision, I want my teammates to be a part of equally. And this decision was no different. So once we started, having a lot more problems as a team, we just constantly have team discussions, and I feel like once eventually the fact that we had a discussion about Ched and how he was doing and if there was anything that he could do differently to help us, we started to brainstorm ideas that obviously to help him, and then it's just like a cycle, right? We were having struggles back of last year, obviously coming off two huge wins and then struggling for the next few months, and that kind of takes a toll on your team and the team environment. So we were all just trying to work through that as best we could, but obviously eventually something's going to have to change if you're not able to get back to the top where we feel like we should be. And we just felt like after talking through it several times, we came to a decision that maybe we just need to, try a change. And we felt like the best change that we can make to help our team would be to remove the coach. And
Mhm.
it just so happens that Zeus became available around the same time. And it was just kind of like, it was like perfect timing, honestly, because Zeus was a free agent and we were just, we have this quarantine situation going on right now. So we're just going to be at home practicing anyway. So why not just try to get Zeus and make the best out of a bad situation.
Yeah, I mean, my personal rant about it is obviously that people pretend like you don't give it a ton of thought. I mean, this is obviously a very big decision for it to happen. And if the relationship wasn't good, that's all the more reason that you would expect a change to occur, regardless of whose fault it is. Not gelling is a big deal. Would you say that? What are the pros and cons of taking on Zeus versus having another coach? Just in a general sense, like what did you see in Zeus that he could add to the team that you guys were missing from before?
I mean, Chet's obviously a great coach, and we had some good successes together. And it's obviously going to be a lot different working with Zeus and Chet. Like every coach, like you said, is different, right? You can't really compare each person. They like to do things differently. They're different personalities, but obviously, what's been missing for us lately is like that hype factor and that motivation and that kind of second leadership style. Which, again, ironically, I understand that in my past that didn't work because I wanted to be that type of person, and Zeus kind of and I butted heads in that sense. But now, like, I've been working really hard on just trying to change my mentality and just be on the same page as Zeus. So I feel like the kind of person he is and the kind of person I am now, we're just going to complement each other more rather than butt heads. And that kind of like, because I've been a lot more vocal and I've been trying to become a stronger leader on this team. And even though sometimes I'm still failing and learning, because it's a process and it takes a long time, so it's
Mhm.
nice to have someone that can step in right away and someone that I can still learn from. Back then, I don't think I was mentally mature enough or prepared to learn from Zeus, but nowadays I feel like I've grown a lot and I still have a lot to learn from Zeus. But we're gonna complement each other and hopefully bring just like a stronger structure mentally to the team.
Any worry about the fact that, like, you're ready to change and maybe take on some more of his advice, just for at face value and just give him the trust that he maybe was asking for before. But any worries about the fact that it was such a rigid relationship in the past and that it eventually turned sour? Like, did you feel like when you take him on this time that you could there could be another kind of supernova end to it all where it just grows to the point where you guys end up having different philosophies again, even though you started off on the right foot?
I'm not worried at all because like I said before, just the type of person I was back then, it kind of allowed for conflicts to rise up and not be solved. I feel like I was a lot more introverted and I didn't like conflict in general. So nowadays, if there's ever is conflict, I feel like I'm a lot more equipped to just deal with it right out and hit it face on and just tackle things at face value. So if Zeus and I are just disagreeing about some things, we're either going to have to compromise with each other or just
Mhm.
talk about it and come to a resolution. But it's not going to be any more of like not talking about it, complaining to others and just not tackling the problem head on because that's not how you solve problems. You can't improve that way, and it's not healthy. So I feel like him and I are already on the same page. And
Mm.
yes, we had a rigid relationship in the past, but I feel like not many people know this, but him and I squashed that beef long ago. I think that
Mm.
was back when I was on complexity and at the London major or something. Like we just kind of had a talk, and I approached him. I apologized for the way I was on liquid, and I like that was just another phase of me trying to grow and kind of reconcile with him. Obviously, there was no intention of uh like ever working with him again because I never knew or thought that I would. But I just thought that it was important for him to understand that I respected him and I learned a lot from him, even though at the time I didn't show that. And nowadays, I feel like it's important to just be that kind of person where you can always look back and learn from your mistakes.
Mm. Now, I mean, you two seem joined in the sense that you are motivated by the will to win. He's a very passionate guy. You clearly have like good priorities as a player, and I think ultimately maybe you can see common ground there. Now, if we look at last year a little bit before we jump into this game, I also want to ask, you guys when you played up against like Astralis, which was what everybody was gunning for near the like last quarter, second half of last year, when everyone was good enough to kind of play against them. You guys had the best map pool to play against Astralis, even over Liquid, who were winning more games versus Astralis. What was it, even though you had such a strong map pool, that was holding you back from being consistent versus these other teams versus Astralis towards the tail end? Why did it start dropping off when things were working pretty well?
I think it started dropping off just because I mean, it's kind of a cop out answer, but we just went to too many events and didn't prioritize enough time to practice. But I felt like we were so equipped to play against the likes of Astralis just because, like you said, our map pool was so strong. And you look at the likes of Liquid, and every time they play Astralis, they have to ban train. And
Hmm.
that's a very strong map for us. So right away, we go into the Vito with an advantage, and we just match up we match up very well against on all of the maps that Astralis plays, and we always feel like we can beat them on any map that they want to pick. So it's
Hmm.
just I feel like every time we play them, we have an advantage going into the veto. Whereas a team like Liquid, they're just like one sided. They what they're gonna pick and what they're gonna ban. But with Astralis, they can always change it up, and I felt like whatever they would change it up to, we were still comfortable on.
Mm. So I guess with the new coach, not a ton changes. Is that would that be fair to say? Is Zeus going to help you add like more maps or strengths in different maps specifically that you were looking for, or is it a mental boon that he gives you guys?
It's definitely a bit of both. I think there's a lot of strengths that we have as a team, but there's also a lot of weaknesses, and we're all very open to kind of a fresh start and just trying new things. And I feel like with the way we've been struggling lately, everyone on this team is open to changes, and whether that means changing spots on CT side or changing up the way we play on T side. And Zeus
Mm.
is just here to first, I think, learn about what our strengths are, and then he's also going to slowly implement what his strengths are, so that we can just kind of combine the best of both worlds. And him and I need to work as hard as we can quickly to get on the same page in terms of T side, but he's also going to help fine tune individuals in terms of their positions and the way they play both on CT and T, and just kind of make sure that he gets the best out of everyone.
Mm. Now we're going to take a look at a match from the Spring Series versus 100 Thieves, really close Nuke match. What's funny about this game, Stanislaw, is I remember this with you. I think you played on Team Conquest, maybe. You had like Naf and Rush on your team.
Yeah.
And it was when new Nuke came out, the first day it came out, and it got picked against you in the veto when not many people were picking it. And then you ended up winning the map, having not played it since the old Nuke came out. So you've always been a very talented Nuke caller, whether you knew it or not. And this game was pretty topsy turvy, like lots of eco rounds that didn't go your way. But is Nuke something that you just a map that you understand that you just get?
Yeah, I think my strengths as a caller, I would have to say, is definitely a style that involves manipulating rotations, and Nuke is exactly that, right? Because you always have to kind of throw some kind of smokes, fake them, make them drop lower, and just kind of you can always set your pace and your tone of how you want to play the T side. So I feel like that kind of just suits me. It's like best as a caller.
Hmm. From my perspective, watching a lot of pro matches or casting them, Nuke a lot of the times comes down to how well teams can play 3v3s. Is that something that you practice down towards, like not playing just 5v5s or talking about setups, but talking about those those rotations and adjustments on your side when you're down in numbers, all the way down to 3v3, 2v2?
Yeah, for sure, because teams are getting a lot more creative on Nuke, especially on the CT side to get picks. Like you'll see oppers pushing HUD, or you'll see opper pushing ramp. You see really aggressive outside plays, and just really it's all about who can get that first pick and then manipulate rotation. So for us, I mean, we try to talk about as many scenarios as possible, but as you can see here, like each scenario looks different and plays out differently.
Hmm.
We've both been playing Counter-Strike for over 10 years, and we still find ourselves each day when we play in a new scenario. So we just talk about as many basic and broad range of scenarios that we can, so that when we are actually in them, we can hopefully react in the best way possible. So let's say, like right here, it was a 3v3 retake. Maybe, I mean, we've certainly talked about what the best post plant positions are, but I mean, it just didn't play out there. But yeah, like it just takes a lot of practice and a lot of discussion, and you're just constantly going to have to keep reevaluating those things.
Hmm. On the T side here, there's a lot of outside, as there always is. Everyone and their grandmother goes outside on T side on Nuke. But you guys actually spent a lot of the rounds not just crossing lower, but trying to hit upper as well. Now, a lot of teams are just focusing on the lower site. Is there anything you can say about why you also like to spend time going to upper, or do you think it's an underrated site to hit on the map?
It just really depends on what kind of resistance you get. So if you do outside smokes and you get a lot of resistance around secret, where a CT will throw a smoke or a molly, like you see where Jacob is right here, he has a molly still on his body. So if like we try to get down and then he throws that molly, it's going to be very hard, because we know A, there's already one guy down there, and B, he might have more nades. So in that case, you already kind of know somebody's down lower. That means they have vulnerability somewhere else. So you just kind of have to always figure out where there's the most resistance, and then kind of make a plan to figure out where they are the weakest. So that could be ramp, that could be upper. In this case, we feel like if there's a guy lower, which, and this comes with studying as well, right? Because if you study a team like 100 Thieves, they drop two lower a lot. So we figured, upper would be the most vulnerable in this scenario.
So just off of you see one, maybe there's two with that one
Yeah.
right away. They've got eyes and upper. So do you here inside of lobby, and you're starting to wrap. You're the one lurking into heaven.
hmm Yeah. So I mean, right there, like I got really lucky. He came to check for that spot, and then I just got lucky. I always get in those scenarios, and I like it's the scariest thing, because you don't know when he'll turn around, or you don't
Mhm.
know if he'll like kill you on accident. You don't know if you're waiting too long or too short. But I mean, I think there I waited too long, and I should have just came out a bit sooner, and it might have cost my team the round there. But I mean, that's the beauty of CS, right? You're making an insane play, and you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, so there's that situation, like in particular, your teammates are trying to split upper, but you could set up 2 kills if you wait long enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tough decision to make. Now, when teams push into, you're going to do an upper split like this. Teams pushing into hut, that's going to happen. Either pushing a hut, maybe check squeaky or something like that. Like, how do you deal with that from heaven and from lobby? Are you trying to just hope your lobby guys trade the hut guys, or are you just hoping there's only one guy in there? When you don't have the info and you need to execute, like how do you best deal with it?
I think you can just discuss the best case scenario, and usually for an upper split, if you have somebody going heaven, I think the best case scenario is to go door, just because HUD is so close range, and if there's one or two guys in there, it just becomes like a crossfire bloodbath. And
Mhm.
with door, there's just a lot more room, and you also always have the option of going down vent if shit goes wrong in upper. So I just feel like going door gives you more possibilities and is just safer, whereas HUD is just, it's too congested. Maybe you can have a lurker of yours watching HUD and the ramp flank, but the majority of your forces should for sure be coming out of door, because you can just smoke mini off, you can molly the vent, and all your eyesight has to be is just looking left. Whereas if you're coming out HUD,
Mm,
you got to look like to the right, to the left, up and down, and then
yeah.
it just becomes a lot more difficult for you.
Oh, that's sage advice. That's really good. Yeah, that's a really interesting thought. Now, what with these upstairs hit, I had a question about your interview, I think, where you talked about playing against 100 Thieves. You mentioned, I think, afterwards that they always play the same against you. They
Yeah.
always play the same against you. When we're watching, I mean, it's hard for us to see. You guys know because you play against them all the time. What are some of the tendencies and stuff that you thought about coming into the match and then saw them try again when they played you? Or what's some stuff they always do?
Yeah, I mean, on their CT side, they're just pretty aggressive. They love to fight outside. They love to send two lower, like I said before, and they're just very lower focused, in my opinion. So here, we're just trying to manipulate that as much as possible and trying to pressure them lower as much as we can, so that later, eventually, we can just isolate a guy on ramp, or we can go upper because it should be weaker. But here, like, we get lower for free, and obviously now they're sending JKS down, which means someone has to pick up JKS position. So it's just in this specific match, I remember Chet and I just discussing that we really need to make sure that they're focused on lower, which is what they
Mhm.
normally do, and then we can hopefully hit upper with as little pressure as possible.
So you killed Grat, you moved right out and didn't expect JKS to be there. Did you just think JKS was in a new spot this round?
Well, I killed someone coming down from the right-handed position, which
Mhm.
I just felt like I got there so fast that I was actually first to that position. But yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I should have just understood more of who I killed, because if I killed Gratisfaction, I felt like JKS should have been somewhere there as well. But I
Mhm.
mean, look, like it was a minute left and they were gambling too lower. So like we could have been wrapping heaven or wrapping outside, and that was kind of a big gamble for them. And unfortunately, I don't know if we win or lose this round, but just gambles like that usually pay off. So it's good on them, but also for us to understand that a team like this gambles, so we just got to be very careful.
I've seen Ethan win these, but I don't think this is one of those situations. Really tough spot to play,
Yeah.
of course, with the split coming out. Yeah, that's actually the first guy. I don't know. Yeah, no, okay, he doesn't get it. There's
Close,
so
close.
many really close rounds where it's like it's one of those games where if you play it again, like completely different outcome, either lopsided one way or the other. There were some many clutches that came of it. But that leads me to my next question, and that's how do you define success? Like, if you look at this round as 1v1, but you got into lower successfully, they were too lower like you expected. As an IGL, are you looking at this as an information win in any way, or are you just thinking we lost, so that's pretty much like a bad round in general?
If you're looking at success and you want to determine what works for you and what doesn't, I think it's important to just understand if the idea was good, and then you have to look at if the execution was good. So in that specific round, I felt like our idea was perfect. We went lower. We knew that there was going to be at least one there, and I had all of secret control to myself, and that means that ramp was going to be most likely vulnerable just because they have to focus on lower. So I feel like the overall idea was correct, but then if we're going to talk about execution now, the first mistake was on me. I killed somebody lower, but I didn't necessarily realize who I killed, and I should have been more vigilant and patient, because if I realized that I killed the opera and not the ramp player, I should have like just slowed down, taken my time, and then let my team come down ramp and we sandwich that area together. So I feel like the idea was good, but the execution wasn't. So I don't think it's necessarily too bad to implement that idea again. But next time in that scenario, obviously, I've learned my lesson. Ethan's going to maybe play that clutch a little differently, and my team will come out ramp faster. We just can kind of fine tune those things, but the basic idea is still the same.
Mm. Now we're on an eco. You guys just decide to try to crush upstairs. I think you actually win this because Tarek gets like a second kill here in upstairs. On an eco round, I feel like for a lot of people, it's one of the most scary things to do to try to hit upper of all places. How do you get the most out of an eco round on Nuke?
I feel like eco rounds are very, very random, and
Hmm.
it just depends on how much money you have. If you have, let's say, 2,700 in the bank, it might be just better to get deagles and hope for the best. But let's say you have just enough to buy full nades and do some kind of pistol armor execute, then you can still do what you do on gun rounds, which is throw smokes outside, manipulate rotations, and then hopefully just have one or two upper. Because upper, once you get out and you have good flashes and good mollies, then you're just in their face and those pistols come in handy, and then it's very hard for a team to retake upper. But it just becomes about, like I said before, you got to manipulate those rotations and make sure you're um, just still using those pistols to their full advantage.
Hmm. You guys are running at light speed across outside. I think you probably had an idea in either force up or an anti-eco. I mean, one of the two options. when you guys are running outside, is it what is the point of that actually? Like why not take it slow when you could if you have time?
Well, against pistols, especially on this should apply to every map. You want to take as long range battles obviously as you can because
Mhm,
pistols are more effective close range. So on a map like this, we don't want to let them get anywhere close outside first
mhm,
because then it's going to be hard for us to clear. So we figured that if we just swing outside as fast as we can, smoke off the choke points like Mini and Locker and Heaven, and just get into the positions where we can engage in long range fights, then that gives us the best chance for success. And
mhm,
a lot of the times it is best to go slow and just feel the other team out, but sometimes it's also good to catch them off guard because they'll expect you to go slow and just take long range battles because those should be successful for you against pistols.
I had a Rush on the hot seat in week one, and he cited you as one of his favorite IGLs because he said that you did a really great job of changing it up all the time. Like he wouldn't even know what you would call in a future round. Sometimes it'd be slow rounds, sometimes it'd be fast rounds. How would you describe like your pacing as a caller? Do you just go off of what you feel like the other team won't expect? Do you have certain paces for certain teams?
It's really hard to describe, but I feel like it's best to just impose the pace of the game as much as you can on the other team. So it's it's tough, but I mean, I just want to say, if you play a slow round, you need to make sure that in that slow round, you're doing things that can set you up for the future. So let's say we do a bunch of fast outside smokes on Nuke on a slow round, and we're just kind of working the map and getting in positions. Uh, let's say 3 to 4 rounds later, we throw those exact same smokes, and then you can kind of change it up and do something just a little bit different that's going to catch them off guard because if you just keep them guessing with the same things and masking the same things that you're doing and then you change it, they're never going to be able to understand what you're doing. And
Mhm,
that goes with what smokes you throw, that goes with how fast you go, that throws with, how much noise you make and whether you're rushing dry with nades or just walking out somewhere. It's just you can do so much if you just mask the certain things in certain rounds that'll set you up for the future. I think that's one of the most important things about playing T sides is just masking and keeping the other team guessing.
And that's why sometimes we see teams use utility when it doesn't seem to have an effect. It can all be a part of a big plan to condition. Here, you guys bust upstairs again. This is when Gratis
Oh
my
my
face.
god.
Gratisfaction. He got 6 headshots in a row with a USP. It just stopped your upper rush. It was just kind of a blind spot on the site, right? I mean, you guys are coming out clearing heaven from Squeaky.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, here obviously we have no one's really looking at him. I don't remember what happened, honestly. I felt like the door rush was a good call just because they didn't have nades to stop the upper rush. But I
Mhm.
mean, it was just when you go fast like that, that's the downfall of it, right? It's so fast and so hectic. You're going into a choke point and you don't really have a backup plan. You can't just stop in the middle of upper. So
Mhm.
that was a bad call by me for sure. But also, it's just he hit 6 nice shots, and what are you gonna do sometimes?
Yeah, 6 nice shots. That's a lottery. Yeah, it's pretty nuts. Um, here, I think we were on 14. Oh, here, you actually Molly Jacob back red. So you're playing it slow outside. Jacob responds to the Molly, but no one pushes him. So he ends up moving forward and then just goes back to his position. Is this a mistake of not clearing after the Molly? Were you just going through the motions? Or did you anticipate him here?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah.
If you're gonna molly that, you should for sure 100% know that it's clear. And there, he shouldn't even have gotten one. And then
Mm.
obviously Gratis can peek off him and get a second kill. So that's just bad play by us by mollying a position and not fully taking advantage of that molly and clearing it.
Okay. And then you get pushed into, low number situation, obviously, after losing a couple trades outside. You go downstairs. This is a really daunting scenario for the T's. I mean, you're wrapping up the rounds. You're not going to save at this point, but you know that it's pretty obvious what you're trying to do. So how do you, pull the wool over the CT's eyes just to cut noise completely, hope downstairs works?
Yeah, I mean, each scenario is gonna play out differently for sure. But in this case, like, I remember I wasn't sure how many people Jakim and Gratisfaction saw outside. So if you can use that kind of information to your advantage, like I don't think they saw many of us outside. So I think that's why we still went lower, just because they weren't sure of exactly where we were. So by cutting noise
Mhm.
and just continuing our plan, then they were just completely in the dark. Whereas if you kind of split up in 3vx situations, it's really hard, to sell a fake or just you kind of give away too much information. So it's best to kind of just cut noise and uh, use whatever information that the other team gave you. So in this case, it was them not seeing many of us, so we could still just proceed with what the plan was.
Hmm. How much are you actually actively thinking about, like, the amount of where CTs are while also playing the game? And how much are you thinking about just like, hopefully they make a mistake here because there's too many variables at play?
I mean, that's what CS is, right? You're just constantly thinking about where the CTs are on your T side. You have to, for sure, keep that mental map in your mind of where they are so that you know exactly what to do. And Counter Strike is just, I think that was after the eco round or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
that was a
just
grad
getting
round.
really frustrated. But yeah, in Counter Strike, you just have to. It's just all about who can react the fastest and make the best decision for that reaction. So
Mm,
if you just can constantly, hopefully, keep gathering information from the CTs and making decisions based off that information, that's going to give you the best chance for success. And it's really hard. And a lot of the time, CTs are good at masking where they are and potentially not being there. Like you see how Gratis, I think he started opting outside and then he's going to
yeah.
potentially move back. And you already have someone dropping lower. It's just good to always see mobility on the CT side and keep the T side guessing.
So Cirque telling you about that, he saw someone outside and then dropped missed a shot. He's trying to guess where Grat's going next. Now Grat knows that you guys are approaching outside. How do you approach this opera outside if you're not sure where he's going next?
So I feel like we're just playing very slow right now, and we've actually spotted him outside. But in my head, I think in this specific round, I thought
Mhm.
that he would move somewhere else, but I think he's still opping heaven. So by anticipating where he'll be next, I made a plan on where my team should go. So in this case, I think we're faking that we're going to be still pressuring the op outside and just pushing him back even further. Whereas I think we're still going to just try to make upper vulnerable in this sense. Like, so yeah, we're just setting up door. We figure that the op would either still be outside or somewhere else. So we're just kind of still manipulating those rotations and just patiently going outdoors. So this is the scenario we talked about before, right? Like
Mm.
we made a lot of pressure lower and outside, and now it's best to go outdoor because A, they're scared of heaven and mini, and door has the least amount of choke points.
Right, and you guys had like perfect split timing. Who's controlling communication there? Is it the guys who are outside who are in a bit more danger, or the guys who are in squeaky who are like, now you guys come through mini?
Yeah, it's for sure the guys that are outside that are going to have to control the pace of that split. I think that it's really important for the door guys to be ready to come out right when the heaven guy's ready because he has different timings. If the heaven guy just needs a few more seconds either to climb up or the CT's peeking him, he can't really go right away. It's just on him to constantly update the rest of his team and communicate as best he can.
Who's the best communicator on your team?
I mean, it's hard to say. I even myself sometimes find myself struggling with communication, and it's just something you constantly have to work on and update. But I think we're all pretty good at it. Ethan is remarkable. I think he's always calm.
Oh,
I
really?
think
Yeah.
what's really good about communication is being calm, urgent, and also just concise and clear. Because a lot of the times when you see us on LAN, like, and you listen to our comms, I think you could listen to them at Blast here.
Mhm.
There's a lot of repetition on LAN because you get nervous and hyped up. So you're saying instead of like Cirque there, for instance. He didn't say this, but I'm just going to give an example. He saw two on Twinkie, right? So instead of repeating like three times, two Twinkie, two Twinkie, two Twinkie, if you just say it once or twice and give it an urgent call, that helps your team kind of process the information a lot clearer. So I think we're all really good at communication, but it's important to note that there's still always room for improvement, and you shouldn't panic or just focus on those things, like urgency and repetition, and just make sure it's as clear and concise as possible.
Mm. Uh, I'd say, like, okay, if you were to rate the maps in terms of what's the most demanding in communication, what would be the top three most demanding maps in the pool for good communication?
I think Nuke is definitely up there, especially on the CT side. Nuke's probably one of the hardest just because there's so much rotating that you have to do. If the operator gets smoked up outside, he has to go somewhere else. And then if he leaves his outside position, someone else has to pick up that position. And then if
Mhm.
they make lower pressure, someone has to drop lower. And then who's going to pick up upper? Who's going to pick up ramp? There's just constant updating and rotating. And Nuke is definitely probably number one for me.
Mm.
Other maps like Inferno are huge just because it's such a small and closed map, and you hear so much information, and grenades are huge on that map, like smokes and mollies and nades. So
Mhm.
if you're constantly updating, like Ethan's really good at this on T side Inferno, he'll constantly update me on how many nades have been thrown up on their CT side of banana if they have smokes left. So if I get that kind of information, then it's perfect, right? My job is easy. If they don't have smokes and mollies to hold us up B, we can just go B and XX. It's
Mm.
just I think Nuke, Inferno, and even like maybe a map like Overpass, just like maps where nades are hugely impactful, like
Mhm.
Overpass, Inferno, and Nuke,
Where
those
would you
are
put
where you
where would
need
you
the
put
most
train?
updating.
Where
Train
would
is
you put
like
train CT side?
Train CT side is hard because I feel like you're in the dark a lot. It's just
It feels
until
like
the
a lot
attack is actually coming. What's up, sorry?
it feels like when there's, like, an A exec on train, there's so much guessing
Yeah.
because you can get so far so quickly.
Yeah, I just feel like as a CT on train, you're just always in the dark just because when the T's are Ivy, they throw an Ivy nade set and you're either behind it or in front of it and you don't really know what's going on. And same with like me as an inner player, like I don't know if there's one inner, two inner, like sometimes they'll throw a couple smokes to fake and it could be a full attack or not. You just never really know
Mhm.
if the attack's coming until it's actually happening. And the rotates on train are just so long. So it's just that map is just really hard to communicate on because you don't really know what to communicate.
Yeah, like, it's obviously the Z, like, your Z rotator, but, like, everyone else, any big flank takes a long
Yeah.
time or is very dangerous.
Mhm.
So switching focus back to this game, what do we know in general about 100 Thieves on their T side? What were you anticipating their game plan to be?
They're just very fast paced and they do a lot of the masking that I was talking about, and then they go into something completely different. So, you know those smokes that go from T-red to secret, and it's usually means that's a lot of Teeds are going down lower. What they'll do is they'll just flash outside and they'll just run through the smokes, and they have a play that they do a lot with that. And we just got to make sure that we're conscientious of exactly what they're doing. So if you see some kind of like smoke or whatever they're doing, it's usually not what they're actually doing, and you got to be ready for something else. So usually when we're playing them, if they're doing like those outside smokes, we'll be like, okay, I only hear one, so watch out upper or watch out ramp. So it just helps everyone be more prepared and vigilant, and they need to expect something else of as to what's actually like what they're trying to perceive is happening.
Mhm. So, I mean, yeah, you were saying, like, you kind of like, they try the same things against you. That's something that you said, after the match. And so is that inferring that some of the stuff that they do in their default, it's not like a fake it wouldn't appear to be a fake to other teams maybe, but for you, you see when they throw light utility in one spot, that can sometimes be a tell for you?
Yeah, I feel like with them, I usually have a pretty good idea of what's going on. And like here, I mean, they're just doing their basic vent drop that they always do, and Cirque manages to kill them. But
Mm,
with them, like they're what they do really well is that I feel like they just hit their shots all the time. So even though you expect what's coming, they're still able to just out aim you, and that's a really big strength of theirs. They have five skilled players, and but yeah, I'm just gonna say what I said before. I just feel like they mask a lot of things that they do, and then they try to catch you off guard with something else, and that's it gets predictable for me specifically. But I also feel like they're the kind of team that changes it up, and when they start changing it up, that's when, like, it's hard to focus, and
mm.
that's when their skill shines through, and you have the likes of JKS and JKIM and the rest, and they can just hit shots, and it's they're I still think they're a very, very good team.
Mm. Right after this, we should jump to round 22 to talk more about that vent stuff because we have a round where JKS does get away with the clean vent drop, and I wanted to ask you, how do you first of all deal with the vent drop, and how do you deal with the vent drop when you know it's already taken place? Like you haven't killed the guy, and you know someone gets into lower at like a minute 30. What is your response as a CT without overreacting? How do you respond?
Yeah, there's a few ways you can deal with the vent drop, but I just think it's tough because I think it's spawn based. If you have a really good spawn for mini, like for instance, Cirque killed JKS that one time with the op, like he could
Mhm.
always peek before he can get down the vent, so we know he's not going to be down. But if you don't have a good spawn to deal with that, and you know he's down vent, then it's best, honestly, you either have to, yeah, you just have to make a decision. So you either have to go down and clear him with like one or two guys, or you can just secondly leave him alone and clear another part of the map, or thirdly, you just kind of stop whatever they're gonna do next. So in this case, like what's the most common scenario is they'll get somebody down vent, and then they're gonna go outside just because he has secret control already. So what's best to do there is kind of stop that secret split and just focus all your attention there, or like push lobby. But in any scenario, if he's down vent, you have to be proactive and you have to try your best to either deal with that or deal with something else that's coming, because vent control is such a huge part of map control on T side nuke, and if you can't stop him getting down, then you have to be proactive and clear something else.
Mm. Is it, to go secret out the gate on a CT side? Is that adjustment to start with somebody in on secret stairs? Is that something you do because you don't wanna op outside, or is it something you do to also have someone that can deal with the vent drop nice and early? When are those situations where you'd wanna have someone on secret stairs?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both. If they're dropping vent a lot on you and you can't deal with it, then it's a great way to deal with that. If you just send a rifle down lower and Hopefully, he can just look out for the vent guy that's lurking around. If he doesn't make it down vent, then perfect. If you have a team that is very prone to going down secret with smokes, then you can have somebody already there ready to deal with it. You can also go for a lot of picks because on T side, a lot of terrorists like to go on the Twinkie, and then
Mhm,
they like to look at secret. But you can obviously set up a flash for like an opper that can go secret and just peek the Twinkie guy and
mhm.
perhaps get a free pick. Yeah, there's just so much versatility you can do, and since the meta of Nuke is obviously to use lower a lot, it's just good to have somebody down there as quickly as possible.
Now there's more blind spots now, like, more than ever before with playing Nuke outside. Before you can, have an upper and big garage, and they could just take care of outside or die, and you would know. But now you could have someone that could get on top of Mini in just, like, 10 or 15 seconds, or you could get that silent cross across outside, and you may just have an upper there can only watch half of that, at once. So there can be points in the round where you're 5v5 and you lack critical information. Um, do you try to avoid those situations in the sense that, like, you try to make sure there are no blind spots, or do you recognize that sometimes there will be blind spots and you have to make kind of gambles to reclaim information, like rotating someone down secret to make sure they haven't pushed that far, or making your opera go a little bit aggressive outside to just clear something?
Yeah, I think you should avoid those situations at all costs just because playing a CT side and even a T side, just playing CS in general without any information is just like a nightmare because you're just guessing at that point and you don't know what the best call is to make or what kind of play you should try to make. And yeah, I mean, whether you're on CT or T side, if you're in a 5v5 situation, you should always, I think both teams always kind of have a fight for information and you just constantly have to continue to gather information and keep making decisions based off what you gather. So
Mm.
whether it's a map like Nuke or whatever other map we're going to be talking about, I just feel like information is the main thing you gather as a CS player, whether it's CT or T, because that's what makes your decisions, and that's what uh, uh I don't know. I lost my train of thought, but you
Yeah,
know what
that's
I'm
what
trying
makes
to say.
yeah, that's how you get to your decisions. Actually, I only wanted to look at the first half of the map. I wanna look at this round one more time, though, because there's something, cool here. So if you can skip back to the beginning of that. Um, this round right here, you guys play aggressively to talk about that information gathering. You play aggressively outside, then you end up losing your 2 trades. So I wanted to ask about your decision making. Why did you play aggressively like this, and what do you do when it doesn't work out?
So I think in this specific round, we decided to play aggressive just because they were getting down outside for free so much, and
Mm,
we thought that this setup would just kind of hopefully go better in our favor. But obviously, there I missed a shot. I think Ethan got killed, and then but the whole point of that play was just to like we're talking about, right? To get information and and to use whatever information we've already had, which in this case was they're using lower a lot and they're using outside a lot. So let's just not let them have that space and just get in their face right away. So it didn't work out, but I feel like the idea was still good.
Now you've done, like, considerable damage, but you're obviously 2v5, so it's just hope somebody gets, like, a crazy through. You got Breeze on a big flank here. He's actually got 2. I don't know if you win this round, but now it's more reasonable that you could. Tarek
Yeah, we
obviously
almost
has to go
did, but
ham. Oh
no.
my god, yeah, it comes close. Oh, I remember this, the molly, yeah. So Tarek can't rotate down, that
Yeah.
sucks. But yeah, that's to highlight the importance, obviously, of denying vent, in many different kinds of situations.
Hmm.
That's probably, like, one of those situations that you're talking about where, like, you practice all day long, and then one round rolls around that you've never seen before, and that happens a lot on Nuke, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've practiced so many rounds, but there's not many where you see Vince behind like three guys outside and they
Mhm,
could just play out so many different ways. And that's the kind of stuff that you can't prepare for. And that's where skill and individual talent comes through. But I mean, obviously, you don't want to solely depend on that kind of stuff. You want to make sure you perfect your team play and your strategy as much as possible. But
mhm.
that's what's nice about being on the team that I'm on is you can rely a lot on individual skill and that shines through a lot. And that's something we've been struggling with unfortunately lately, but with Zeus and hopefully with the fresh start that we have, we can just get back to our team playing being good and then also have that skill to fall back on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all I wanted to take a look at, with this demo. I just had a couple other questions, just about the general state of your team right now before we close out. When you're playing these online matches, obviously it can be really hard to figure out when you're doing things well, when you're not doing things well. There's a lot of inconsistency that comes from online play. What is your perspective, if you have any unique thoughts about what it is exactly about online play that either makes worse teams better or better teams worse? If you even believe that at all.
Yeah, I think online play, there's just so many factors that frustrate me. It's just like for me, for instance, right?
Yeah.
I'm from Canada, and the internet here is just so bad, and I'm
I got
constantly
1,000
getting.
down, 1,000 up, man. Come
All right,
on.
maybe Toronto's the place where I need to be, but I'm not in
Yeah,
Toronto right now, and
yeah,
it's
close.
just I'm either getting like 10 loss, I'm skipping around, like I'm holding an angle like as wide as possible, and I'm still getting swung on before I can even react, and it's just unbelievable sometimes. So it certainly on online you have to play a lot differently than you play on LAN, just because
Mm,
everything on LAN is a level playing field. You have the same computer, same monitor, same internets, everything's the same. But
mhm.
online you have so many variables, like I'm playing against Elige with 5 ping who lives in Texas or whatever, and he's just swinging across my screen and headshotting me right away. So it's like
Yeah.
I'm kind of limited here.
You have to play on Texas?
So, yeah, it's usually a central server like
Oh my
Texas or
god.
Colorado,
But
and I'm playing
Texas
from
is, like, central, but
Eastern
it's, like,
Canada.
south, man. It's so far
Yeah.
away. That's
So it's
bullshit.
just online CS is tough, and
Yeah,
I feel like it gives people a lot of false confidence to peak. Like sometimes when I watch these MDL matches or like lower
yeah,
level pro matches and they're
yeah,
just all online, they're just you see the fights that they take and it's like, dear God, you would not do this on a LAN match. Why are you doing it now? And it's just
yeah.
the answer is because it's online. And to be fair, you have to use those advantages to the best of your ability. So whatever. If you have 80 ping, like what else are you gonna do? You're gonna
Use
hold
it.
an angle, or you're gonna
Swing.
swing
Yeah.
on his ass. Then go for it.
Yeah.
You gotta
And
use that
what's
to your advantage. So
you got
I mean,
advice for these MDL players? Like, do they need to play differently to get to a point where they're gonna be attractive to, like I mean, you're what like, their dream is that you're watching this game, and then you see the next prospect for EG, 2 years from now. Well, so do you have any advice for them on how to play to make sure that they're, like, always looking their best for any pro teams that may be watching their MDL matches?
you should always try to play your best and try to play in a way that is, just it's hard to say because my opinion isn't gonna be factual, right? This is just my
One
opinion, and
perspective,
I
yeah.
just wanna like for me specifically, what I find best in a player is seeing like how much he sacrifices for his teammates. Because obviously, me as an IGL, I have a lot more, or my values are a lot different than per se. Like for an entry fragger or for an operator, like an operator needs to be extremely selfish, and the whole team needs to be based around that operator. But for me as an IGL, my entire gameplay is based on going in first for my teammates or dropping guns when I have money, so someone else can have a rifle, and it's just values change from role to role, but I still feel like whatever role you're in, A, you should always try to play for your team as to the best of your ability. And I think B, just don't just play for I don't know. No, there's no B. Just A, play for your team and that's it. Just
Yeah. Yeah, no
play in your
cap, bro. Play
system,
for you.
get behind that system and just play for your teammates. Like if you're low HP, you need to run out first. If you have an op and you're high HP and you have a low HP teammate, give the op to the low HP teammate and you go in first. And it's just basics of Counter Strike, sacrifices that you have to make. Just make sure you're making those, and just play for your team because that's at the end of the day what matters. Not that you're shining individually. Because if
Mhm.
you're shining individually and you're still losing, then you're part of the problem, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're part of the problem. You can't carry to a
Yeah,
loss. The only score that matters is the one at the top. All right, guys.
exactly.
Dude, it was great to talk to you. So much great insight. That was awesome. I thought that you were awesome to watch that review with, and it was really cool to hear about EG and your thoughts and your team and your team moving forward. Because again, in towards the end of last year, I swear you guys were the real threat, even over Liquid, for that number one spot. So we'll see if Zeus can help you guys achieve that goal of getting to the top. I know it's been a long time coming for you to achieve that level of consistency, and I know you put in a ton of hard work. So I appreciate you coming on and having this chat. I think it was valuable insight.
Yeah, always a pleasure to talk to you, man. I just want to again say to everybody, stay safe, and hopefully you're staying safe too. And we just got to make sure that we get through this pandemic, and at least, like I said, a silver lining is we have Counter Strike to play and watch, and just stay at home, play video games, do your part, and just have fun.
Wash your fucking hands. Peace out.
Later.